On the day that Queen Elizabeth II would have turned 100, we're asking, do you think the monarchy can last another century? 02078622222 is the number. Let's go straight to Grace in London. Grace, what do you think? Do you think the monarchy will still be going strong next century?
I suspect that it might not be, but it's hard to predict how things will be in 100 years.
But why? Why do you think that?
Well, going back historically, people just kind of presumed that God had ordained that someone ought to have reign over people. In contrast, today, most people just presume that there is no God. But even those of us who know that there is good rational reasoning for concluding that God exists, we still know that he doesn't actually make some human beings more important than others. And I think all of us are feeling that actually all human beings are created equal. And what the world needs is not us kind of fawning over the very, very rich, either monarchs or tech billionaires or celebrities. What we really need is to be treating each other with more respect and for there to be more equality and looking at those who have less than us and helping them rather than seeing people who are super rich and feeling that we're not wealthy enough by comparison. I don't think that the kind of hierarchical nature of the monarchy is really good for our world when there is so much injustice.
But do you feel, Grace, as if we feel we have to fawn over the monarchy, or do you feel as if the monarchy work for us and we know that we're effectively their bosses, and when King Charles and Queen Camilla go off to America to, I'm going to use the word liaise, I mean Lord knows what's really going to happen there with all that soft diplomacy with the Trumps, I mean don't we feel they're just doing a really hard job of work on our on our behalf? And I'm not sure, Grace, you'd really fancy doing it. I don't know whether we're fawning over them or just grateful to them for doing something like that for us.
I think that whilst the president is Trump, there will be more people than ever who do feel grateful that there's a monarch putting up with that particular task on our behalf, I suppose, to be fair. But for the most part, I think a lot of people look at the monarchy and they think it's not really just that these people have so much when there are other people who have so little. And I think it would be really good for us to be thinking about things being shared out more equally. It was really good that under the Queen, some of the kind of rule over other parts of our world ended and colonialism was lessened. But we need for that to go further, and we need for there to be more justice and equality around our world and collaboration with people in other countries in a way that's equitable.
Grace, I appreciate what you're saying. Let's bring Helen into this. Do you see Grace's perspective on this, and do you think she's right? Do you think it's so hierarchical? We have to curtsy, we have to say mom, we're told don't shake their hands, wait for royalty to shake your hand and all of that. And therefore, the implication is they're better than us? Or is it that the Queen was the very embodiment of Christ-like duty, selfless and absolutely spreading, kindness and beneficence on our behalf in a dutiful way?
Yes, I do agree with Grace in terms of that there really does need, they're not magical people. And I think, and especially in the situation we're in at the moment when there is so much suffering in the world, to spend that much money on the royal family, they can still carry out their duties without the 6 palaces and things like that. They can still represent us. I think what's very hard for us is when so many of us are struggling, then when we see these people with excess and luxury, it feels vitally unfair.
Okay, I'm just going to bring Jessica in because as editor of Hello magazine, I mean, mankind needs a little glamour, and we need people to aspire to and to entertain us, and that kind of pageantry. The Romans used to say panem et circenses, bread and circuses, and in a way, they're the most elegant and charming of circuses to watch, aren't they?
They bring magic, but it's not just that. It's, as we said, the soft diplomacy of them being asked to go onto state visits, to host them as well. I'm sure they don't want to get up every day and every second of your day is worked out and you're having to meet this president or that prime minister from abroad. But they are
not just that, but plant a tree, cut a ribbon, pat a baby you don't know on the head, and then keep on smiling and saying, "Have you come far? How far have you come?" It's
not all glamour.
It's not much fun. Lots of it, not glamorous, and not. I don't know how hierarchical it is either. Although I remember my mum saying the Queen thinks that every lavatory is just brand new and smells of fresh paint because they've never ever had to wait to use one or stand in a queue.
What if everything you were told about the monarchy wasn't the full story? What if the institution that's been sold as timeless, essential, and even magical is actually facing one of the biggest identity crises in its entire history? Today, we're diving deep into a debate that's shaking the very foundation of royal tradition, A question that's no longer whispered quietly, but asked loudly, publicly, and unapologetically. Will the monarchy even survive the next 100 years? And, more importantly, should it? Because while royal insiders and media loyalists scramble to defend it, a growing number of people, especially younger generations, are starting to see through the illusion. Let's start with the moment that sparked this entire conversation. On what would have been the 100th birthday of Queen Elizabeth II, the royal family marked the occasion with emotion, nostalgia, and carefully crafted messaging. King Charles III delivered a heartfelt tribute, speaking about duty, service, and legacy. It was polished, it was moving, it was exactly what you'd expect. But here's the thing. While some viewers were wiping away tears, others were asking a very different question. Is emotional storytelling enough to justify an institution built on hierarchy, privilege, and inherited power? Because outside the palace walls, reality looks very different. On the same day, a powerful caller summed up what many people are now thinking. And honestly, it hit harder than any royal speech. She said, "We're all equal. What the world needs isn't people fawning over the ultra-rich, whether they're monarchs, billionaires, or celebrities." Let that sink in, because that's not just criticism of royalty. That's a direct challenge to the entire idea of status based on birthright. And suddenly, the monarchy isn't just about tradition anymore. It's about values. Now, defenders of the royal family are quick to jump in. They'll tell you the monarchy is an anchor, a symbol of stability in a rapidly changing world. They'll say it represents British identity, culture, and continuity. And sure, on the surface, that sounds comforting. But let's be real for a second. An anchor can also hold you back. And that's exactly what critics are starting to argue. Because while the world is moving toward equality, transparency, and accountability, the monarchy still operates on a system where one family is elevated above everyone else, simply because of who they were born to. No election, no merit-based system, just inheritance. And this is where things start to get uncomfortable, because once you strip away the pageantry, the crowns, the ceremonies, the carefully staged appearances, what are you left with? A family funded, in part, by taxpayers, living lives of extraordinary privilege, while millions of ordinary people struggle with rising costs, healthcare crises, and economic uncertainty. That contrast is becoming harder to ignore. Now, let's talk about the scandals, because we can't have this conversation without addressing the elephant in the room. The fallout surrounding Prince Andrew and his association with Jeffrey Epstein didn't just damage one individual. It shook public trust in the entire institution. People began asking, who knew what? Who protected whom? And why does accountability seem so selective? For many, this wasn't just a bad chapter, it was a wake-up call. A moment that exposed the gap between how the monarchy presents itself and how it actually operates behind closed doors. And here's where things get even more interesting. Because while some members of the royal family try to maintain the status quo, others have done something far more radical. They've stepped away. Yes, we're talking about Prince Harry and Meghan. And whether you love them or hate them, one thing is undeniable. They changed the conversation. Harry and Meghan didn't just leave royal duties, they exposed the pressures, the contradictions, and the very real human cost of being part of the firm. They challenged the idea that loyalty to the institution should come before mental health, truth, or personal freedom. And in doing so, they forced millions of people to take a closer look at the monarchy itself. Not the fantasy version, the real one. And suddenly younger generations, who were already less emotionally attached to the monarchy, started asking tougher questions. Why should one family be treated as inherently more important than everyone else? Why should taxpayers fund lifestyles they can barely imagine? Why does tradition matter more than fairness? Even some supporters admit that things are changing, that the emotional connection people once felt toward the monarchy is fading. And that's a big deal, because without that emotional bond, what's left? Supporters often point to hard-working royals like Princess Anne, someone frequently praised for her dedication and low-key approach. And yes, she's often described as diligent, committed, and deeply involved in charitable work. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Hard work alone doesn't justify the system. Because the question isn't whether individuals within the monarchy can do good things. Of course they can. The real question is, should those roles exist in the first place? And then there's the argument about cost. Some defenders say the monarchy is actually cheap, costing taxpayers just a small amount per year. But that's a narrow way of looking at it. Because the real issue isn't just financial, it's symbolic. What message does it send when a society struggling with inequality continues to uphold a system built on inherited privilege? What does it say about our priorities? And this is where the conversation gets deeper, because it's not just about Britain, it's about the world. The caller who questioned the monarchy made a powerful point. We don't need to idolize the ultra-rich. We need to focus on fairness, equality, and lifting people up. That idea resonates far beyond royal debates. It taps into a global shift in mindset, a growing belief that power should be earned, not inherited. And let's be honest, the monarchy has survived this long because it adapts. It reinvents itself. It pivots when necessary. But here's the challenge. Can it adapt enough to stay relevant in a world that's fundamentally changing? Because we're not just talking about minor tweaks. We're talking about a complete rethinking of what leadership, representation, and legitimacy actually mean. Some argue that the monarchy provides stability, that it brings people together, that it creates moments of national pride. But excitement isn't the same as necessity. And spectacle isn't the same as value. Meanwhile, the criticisms keep growing louder, from questions about wealth and transparency, to concerns about accountability, to deeper philosophical debates about equality and justice. And at the centre of it all is a simple but powerful idea. All human beings are equal. Not some, not a select few. All. So where does that leave the monarchy? Caught between tradition and transformation, between image and reality, between those who want to preserve it and those who believe it's time to move on. And here's the thing. This isn't about tearing down individuals. It's about questioning systems. It's about asking whether institutions built centuries ago still make sense today. And it's about imagining what a more equal, more accountable future could look like. Because if the monarchy is to survive another 100 years, it won't be because people blindly accept it. It'll be because it proves, beyond nostalgia and ceremony, that it truly deserves to exist. And right now, that's a debate that's far from settled. So what do you think? Is the monarchy a vital part of identity and tradition? Or is it an outdated system that no longer reflects the values of modern society? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join this growing community where we question the narratives, challenge the status quo, and keep it real. Because, trust me, this conversation is only just getting started.